Bulisa kumntu wonke who's joining us this evening. Last we counted, I think last I checked, we were about 200 odd people who were waiting in the waiting room on YouTube. And obviously greetings to the people who are here and have made time to join us this evening live, to just pay tribute and last respects to umhlobo wethu uKaunda. The purpose of today really is to give an opportunity and space for us to bid final farewell. No one's ever done this. Certainly, I haven't been part of such a farewell before. But certainly, we understand the times that we live in have been difficult. We're day 125, we're locked down. And I think losses such as these only serve to compound the difficulty that we all feel. Obviously, it's not just us. I think across the entire country, we have really seen that we've been living with many crises for many years. So I think COVID has only served to expose that as a crisis. But I think one of the things that really has been impossible to do was to bid farewell to Kaunda in the way that we would have wanted to, of anyone that we love, but also in a way that is fitting to such a giant that has touched almost everyone's life that he's come into contact with. I think we all know that his impact was only getting started, but even the short time that he had will be felt for generations to come. Igama lam ndinguThando wakwaGobe, ndisuka mna ngapha eBhofolo. Bhofolo ke sikhula ke saziwa as indawo egcina amageza. Kwakukho ingoma ke kudala ethetha ngeBhofolo. Kodwa ngoku ndiyabona kule age yezi-Instagram no-Facebook kukho umlungu phaa othi thina sitya isibindi eBhofolo. Ngoku sitya isibindi, andiyazi ke ngoku. So, but then waseBhofolo, and my role today really is just to play host. So I will keep it moving. The people here who will give tribute, and they're really the main guys who are going to speak. Thank you once again to everyone who's joined to speak, and a particular thank you to Ifemeli Ntunja for allowing us this space. This is obviously in the most unusual time, and really grateful that you've been able to welcome us and allow us to really pay our respects in the way that we are going to this evening. As you all can see from the list, and I don't think you have in front of you, but you might have seen it before, the people I want to speak are people who knew or were touched by Kaunda. We've resisted putting in any politicians or anything like that. Really, it's just about remembering umhlobo wethu. And really for us, that's what it's about. So really grateful for the opportunity. And obviously, special welcome to Usis Apiwe, Kaunda's wife, who's with us this evening. And of course, Umama Kaunda, Usisa Kaunda, Uthando. Welcome, Sanbulela, and again, thank you for the opportunity. Up front, I'm not sure if Usindu has joined. He sent me a text that he thinks he's joined. Sindu, are you there? Can we ask you to perhaps go first? And there was silence. Perhaps Usakana Lamakosha. Let's go to Vic. Vic, Masego Mhlekazi, welcome. Let me just give over to you, and you can say just a few words about umhlobo wakho.
Obviously when after indaba zikatata kaKaunda ahead of that meeting, sabuyela and I tried to give him a call after that and check his uba besenza ntoni in the week, and then that said on my Sunday. It was pretty sad to hear Monday after I spoke to Closer that he had left us. But like you mentioned, I think for us as friends, and we just want to celebrate the legacy that he's built, the legacy that he started. I think for my role now, obviously, is to talk about the data life. So, but I'll try to be PG-13, so that I don't have more for hunger. I'm not too busy. But, I met Bev in East London. We're helping simply there at the time, and I was at Hudson. So yeah, then after that we sort of met up in Durban 2001, and we played for UND together. So yeah, it was the man just how his voice is. He was very commanding. He was very confident. I'm pretty sure that was all gifted from the father's side with the confidence. As Natal knew him, it was almost like he was in the office every day. I remember one story when Kaunda, we heard that Clive Redmond said to the coaching staff in the town, he said that, guys, pay me what I'm worth, so I'm leaving. And so when we heard that story, obviously knowing Kaunda, he wasn't the next one to say that. Looking at everything that he did and everything that he achieved at the time. And so he obviously said that, and which probably wasn't the best move, but we all know how Kaunda was in terms of how he said what he thought he said. So he wasn't one of those guys that shied back from saying what he believed in. And so for me, I can only thank you for you guys, man, for inviting me just to share one or two stories. Just what kind of man he was in my life. He was good. He was very strong. He was my pillar in terms of my Philippines. He stuck through thick and thin. Even when I was having a tough time in 2016 with no job, with just being fired from Kenya, he sort of brought me in the show in I think it was Ntunja at the time, just to come and talk about my career, talk about my CV, and try to get me somewhere, and try to get me a job. And the next thing, I landed up at the Kings in 2016 for Karika. So for me, he's a big loss. It's a big loss of him, and I'll truly be one of those guys that will always mourn in terms of when his name being streamed.
Sorry, Vic. Abahlali bathi abakuva. Can you just maybe speak a bit louder or project? Ndayiqonda wena tata siqhelanga basekitchen xa kukerwa itswele but ke inyembezi zizawufika ziyeke zikhulule. Just speak loud so we can hear. Kaunda wayengcola fondini.
So like I said, for me, when I got the job at the Kings, and everything that we happened on this side, in terms of the COVID, in terms of the uncertainty in your career and uncertainty in your job, you've been calling me every day just to find out what's going on, if I'm so comfortable. And I think that's one of the things that I'll definitely miss. Just that friend who always used to check up on me, always used to ask how I'm doing. And I know who abused them, like when Kaunda told us that she was pregnant, I was so excited because he told us that it was a boy. And the only thing I could imagine is, when he's started, when he's walking into an area, everyone must know. So I couldn't imagine that when his son walks in, it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be one of those where this is Kaunda's son. No one's ever gonna tell you. No one needs to introduce you to him. Yeah. So for me, thank you very much. I think for me, I'll just pay my respects and say to Bev that thank you for such a wonderful opportunity to be his friend and the care, the brotherhood, and thank you so much. And till we meet on the other side, and obviously Kumama and the family Kaunda, ni strong of this, and keep believing that the only intense that I ever mean is it happens for a reason. And you come, like I said, in legacy, I could never be forgotten, and you guys are part of that. And what's that good?
Masibulele ke Vic, Nkosi mntakwethu. Ndasikhumbula ke ezantsuku sasidlala pha high school. Nisifowunela nisibuza about after the game, ngizama ke ukusenza silose concentration. But you guys didn't disappoint. You always allowed us into your combi. Nane combi pha eMundi sasingena kuyo. Yeah, nomhlaba uyafihla siyabulela bhuti. Inini nozingi and the whole Hudson crew, and in fact the whole of East London. And that was the one thing about Kaunda, he really touched, even back then in high school. And I'm excited the one time, Vic, kwakukho into ekuthiwa prefect exchange. Benkhunjuzwa apha ngonondwangu the other day, but hey, prefect exchange, you're like, wafuna Clarendon, but asikho lapha. Yeah, so no, thanks, Pudi, for those words. We're going to move on. I don't know if Usindu is on. Paetu, I think he was having connectivity problems. Usindu, are you there? Okay, Usindu is not yet ready. Zwins, Kaitate Pudi, Uvik has spoken about how he left Devon, Wakanganini, by Bloemfontein, and you guys spent some wonderful years there, not Ghetto and a few of the other boys, but also you shared a special bond of brotherhood through to a board and a few other things. Of course, so I mean, this really is, it goes way back. Over to you, Putengosi, for joining us as well.
I'm hoping that everyone can hear me. Elamigama ngusinathemba Zweli. Ekhaya lipa Klotiji sonke nophakho ndiyabona sisuka ndawoneni. Kwelali pha yaseGugisi. Ekuthiwa kuseGugisi. Ngesilungu kuthiwa yi-Lower Bling Water. That's where I'm from. I know Kaunda very well. I met my dear friend while we were still in school, Melissa Tiposmalan, while he was in Dale College. But that's not where we became friends. We became friends in 2004 when we were both contracted by Free State Cheetahs. And for anyone that knows Kaunda, there's always a story in meeting. I remember when I landed in Bloemfontein, Unganamge wayesephambili at the time. He had already spent a season or two at the Cheetahs when I joined him in 2004. I got there on a Friday afternoon, if I remember correctly. So I didn't see him the Friday, the Saturday, and I think we met at practice at Vodacom Park the Monday morning. And the first thing my Kaunda said to me was, and I said, I know, I've been here since Friday. The next question he asked was, so where are you staying? I said, Chalet Hotel, I'm up on holiday. Come now, Chalet Hotel. And, that's bad. And my friend and I stayed a few years in Bloom, and unfortunately, when I joined at the Cheetahs, Kaunda was not happy at the camp. Of course, because of various reasons, but mostly I think we all know that for every rugby player, not getting game time is tough. He was very frustrated at the time, when I looked at the situation at the time, some would say it was because there was a lot of talent at the Cheetahs. I would like to differ with that because anyone that has seen Kaunda play at his peak, Kaunda lit up the stadium, you know. Kaunda was a ball carrier of note. I think TG, you've seen more than I have seen. Kaunda played a flank for us, although he was used as a utility. He played 6, 7, and 8 for us for Cheetahs at the time. You know, as I sit here and think about my friends, ndicinga okanye ndinombono uKaunda ephethe ibhola, you know, and those visions excite you, you know, because Kaunda used to love running lines, you know. He was a player who hated bashing rugby. Kaunda ran angles of nose, Vic and him back in shocks would talk about wide and short, which were things that they shared in the field. It was the game plan. Kaunda was elusive. He was fast. He was strong. Kaunda was a player that wanted to dominate contact. You know, wanted to dominate contact, and of course he loved. He had the offloads. He loved to offload the tackles. You know, to him that was what. To him that was what excited him as a player. You know, he would often celebrate those moments. He would celebrate dominating contact and then offloading off the contact. Celebrated as if, you know, he scored a try almost, you know. I found myself many times looking for those moments where I'm watching him celebrating those moments. You know, that actually takes me back to a moment when we were playing against Western Province, Upper Kapa, and Unganam scored a try under the poles, I remember. And because Kaunda was a person who didn't need to be celebrated, Kaunda used to celebrate himself. You know, and he stood up, he jumped up his feet and ran to the board. I picked up his body and he started pointing. And we argued for many years about who are you pointing at? Who are you pointing at? Because we didn't see anyone sitting there behind those poles after he scored the try. But my friend started pointing and he celebrated himself. He celebrated scoring the try like he always did. Kaunda was a visionary. Visionary who I was grateful to watch. I remember I was actually part of his life when he decided that he was done with rugby, you know, and I knew there was another chapter for him. I knew that this chapter of rugby was over, or rather, the chapter of playing was over. And I knew something great was about to happen. So, for Martin, I want to say to Kaunda's family, Kaunda was a soft-hearted, big man. He loved his teammates, he loved his friends, he loved his colleagues. He was a brother to all of us. Always willing to give a helping hand. To your families, I would like to sincerely done said, death is not far with our arch muscle. One shot is past. We wake eternally. Death has no power. It is just a short sleep for those who serve. It is equally a pain to the believers, but there is that life after death, where there is no pain, where your beautiful soul rests in eternal peace. Thank you.
Hey, yabona ngoku elitswele usiza kumfundi. But siyabulela futhi ngalo mazwi. Thank you Zwini for those strong words. Definitely a man worth celebrating, definitely a man that loved contact, but offloaded. And those of us who played with him in the Lucy's used to benefit from that. Yeah, so yeah, that's very important. I think the other point which you raised, which resonated with me, is the fact that Kaunda was very soft-hearted, and I remember many a times, and he used to find victims. He used to find victims, people that he could be soft with. And I remember the one time he was about to be interviewed. He had made SA schools for the second year, and he was about to be interviewed, I think, by Usimniki Klabanis. And Usimniki actually had written a piece the year before about day in which some people felt wasn't complimentary. So he didn't know whether or not to take this interview, firstly. But secondly, and most importantly, we spent about 3 hours preparing for this thing. And I'm like, hey, this guy, I don't know, but he had work ethic and that. So I talked to him about it. I'm like, I don't know, but you need to be prepared now. But then he sort of started opening up about just how unsure he was about that camp that he was going to, and some of the dynamics that he had the year before. And of course, when he got there, he was elected captain. And he called me to say, hey, this has helped. So he was just that kind of person. I think Usintu has joined. I did send him my link. Sintu, are you there? We are aware that there's some clicking in the background. I think it's our production. Apparently, it's coming through much louder than us. So we've told the tools before we thank him. We've told him to just down the clicking and up the speakers. We also want to switch the speaker format switch it to speaker view, so the main person who's talking comes up front. So we're going to work on that. But Sintu hasn't come through. We're going to move then across to Umeknino. John, please take over.
Thanks, TG. Whenever you agree to Kaunda and ask him how he was, his answer would always be, and you're right, Gero. And now you million in banking. I'm not okay, Gero. Kaunda and I arrived at the DV Taylor house. Our parents knew each other. I think either my dad or his mom was in the fire. His mom was in the fire. And my mother was the same clan name as Kaunda. And years later, we during the first birthday, Gatano, Dada would greet me at the gate that night when we arrived. He greeted me at the gate with his infectious laugh and his voice of a bear. Welcome, John. Did you know that you and Kaunda are cousins? At that point, whether it was factually correct, if it's because Yafana and his cousins, it was inconsequential because by that time we were chosen to be brothers. Not just me, we were and still are. A lot of us moved hostel when we moved to high school, a college house. We did have detractors, OTG, and some which were unfortunate enough to live in prison. But for the most of us, we all lived in college house. And we took on being new boys in our stride. We just stuck together in everything that we did. We were also a very naughty bunch. We were a very naughty bunch. We were a very, very, very naughty bunch. And we did it all together. I remember for some reason in 1998, we decided that we were going to skip the prize giving. I don't know why we decided that, but we decided that we were going to skip the prize giving. And then we decided that we were going to arrive super late because the school had threatened that if you arrive late at the prize giving when the doors are closed, they were not going to let you in. So we said, okay, fine. We are going to take a very slow walk from college house to the school hall, which was a good 20 meters. So it had to be very, very slow walk. But when we arrived there, we found a few prefects waiting for us, and we got in big trouble. The school didn't deal with us. It was the prefects that dealt with us. Jason, Gareth, and Charlie had a conversation with us on the Monday. We would also go for midnight swims since we lived opposite the swimming pool. We'd bunk out together to town. We'd pull pranks and wage war on other dorms, and we all did it together. We were a nightmare, but as John Roxon would tell me years later, that group could back it up. As naughty as we were, that group was a group of achievers, and Kaunda would be right at the top of it. Kaunda starred in winning school plays and would go on to write and star in winning school plays. One of the plays was called Macbeth, which was a play on Macbeth and Ubev, as Kaunda was affectionately known. I changed a few lines in that script, maybe like one or two, and I would always tell him that I co-wrote the play. He would throw a fit because I was just doing that just to tick him off. Oh yes, and there was that little thing that he did called rugby, 50 first team caps, over 50 first team caps, first team captain, SA Schools 1999, SA Schools captain in 2000, and SA Under-19 captain in 2001, let alone his professional career, which includes a Currie Cup in 2005. Kaunda, as I think Tando just said, was also a gentle giant, loving and protective, almost to a fault. So everyone knows me would know, after I've had a couple of refreshments, I always tell my friends how much I love them and even give them a kiss. Kaunda always say, yeah, kiddo, I love you too, man. And sometimes he prepare himself well in advance and sit far away from me. When I get a Kausel, I must sit very far away from you. Kaunda was protective. We all know this. He was even protective against himself. There was one night we went out, went to Rosebank, Kaunda, and before we went home, we would buy sub sandwiches at the sandwich shop opposite the place where we were visiting. For some reason, we got into an argument about this sandwich. I was actually arguing by myself. Kaunda just sat there mocking me by just slowly eating this sandwich, knowing that it was riling me up more and more and more. And then in a fit of rage, I just grabbed the sandwich and I tried to throw it on the floor. And I walked away to the car. Little did I know that pieces of the sandwich had actually hit his face. After a few minutes, a very, very angry Kaunda, but a very calm Kaunda, went to the car. And he told me, not certain terms, how he could crush me like a grape, but he didn't. So he also protected me against himself. Kaunda knew what he wanted. I think when his contract ended with the Cheetahs was nearly coming to an end and renewal in October of 2005, I think it was. He told me about a meeting that he had with Rassi, where Rassi offered him a contract to coach one of the junior teams, coach and play, or just coach. I can't remember the specifics. But Kaunda's, he told me about the conversation, and his response was, Rasta, I'm here to play rugby. I'm not here to coach. And obviously, the coach was quite surprised, and he let him know again that, rejecting this could mean the end of the relationship between him and the Cheetahs. Kaunda said again, Rasta, I'm here to play rugby. I'm not here to coach. Now, that was not a sign of arrogance. That was a sign of someone who knew exactly what he wanted. And Kaunda would go on and display that attitude of intent time and time again. In 2011, in January, if I'm not mistaken, Kaunda came back from the holidays. We used to live together. He came back from the holidays. He walked in. I was sitting on the couch. He was by the kitchen door. He found me sitting on the sofa. Kero, compliments, man. Kero, hey man, I met a girl. Kero, man, and he hadn't even sat down yet. I thought, okay, whatever. But as a good friend, I asked the questions. I encouraged the conversation. And indeed, years later, Kaunda, that very same person he was talking about, he ended up getting married to. That would be Wavio. Another time would be when we moved up to Johannesburg together. All of our belongings in his gold polo, gold member is what he called that car. After a few months with the Lions, the writing was kind of on the wall that his contract was not going to get renewed. And I think he foresaw that injury amongst other things. I'm not sure why I was around when he contracted Kaunda as a pair, but that's a story for another day. He told me that he was calling it quits on his rugby career months before. It was not an easy time because the curtain was closing on what was supposed to be an illustrious playing career. Upe would call me in the middle of the day and come to see me at MultiChoice. He would tell me about things that were troubling him, which we spoke through. But I think most importantly, Kaunda, he would tell me about his dreams. Gero, I want to do something where my creativity and my sport would come together. So we had a lot of these impromptu meetings in the parking lot. He would come sporadically at MultiChoice and come. But through time, the meetings would change now. Kaunda wouldn't come from Wits or wherever he was from. Kaunda would be coming from next door, a SuperSport, where he'd have a series of meetings, where his dream was starting to come to fruition. At the same time, he started working for C Squared, where his creative side would shine. His creativity and his sport would finally culminate, as he had spoken months before. Kaunda was a connector. When he moved to Bloemfontein, he connected many of us who had come from the Eastern Cape, by living separate lives. We reconnected with old schoolmates, with new friends, with the rugby guys, and a whole new community was built around this guy. And every Saturday we'd go to Vodacom Park to watch the Cheetahs, to watch him play for the Cheetahs, or catch the game on live TV when the time came. I've not even scratched the surface of who this guy was, because how do you try and put over 28 years of friendship and brotherhood in 10 minutes? How do you deal with that in a single moment when you get a text telling you will never see, talk to, or grow old with your longtime friend? That's what we all dealt with last week. That's what we are dealing with now, and it's not going to pay for us for a very long time. To the gents, I've spoken to most of you during the course of this week, and it has been very difficult. We like to put on a brave face, but I think it's okay, right now, to just let your guard down and be there for one another, because we need each other and we need to support one another. To Mama, Utando, Nokoza, nice. No one deserves to go through what you have been through in the past couple of weeks. To Wavio, everyone I've spoken to in the past week was breaking for you and asked me to send you their love. We prayed for you and will continue to pray for you. Amulo Iso Saloid, told you at your wedding that when you married Kaunda, you married all of us. Never did we imagine that it would happen so soon. But it's time for you to cash that check. It's a corner, and we're here for you, and we'll be here for you and the kids. Bachana my good friend. Goodbye, my mate. Rest in peace, Bev. Rest in peace, Panda. Till we meet again. Cheers.
Yeah, no, masibulele Motlatjho. Yeah, not easy week. But also it couldn't have been easy for Mama. Way back in 1991, it was when we all went for interview at Dale Junior. I failed the interview. I had to go to St. Christopher's, and then Davidson, and then I only got accepted in 94. But I think you guys got in. And the reality is that Mama left us at TV Taylor House. I think Nick and the few boys were there, but with no one, it was still an uncertain time politically in our country. And I think you guys from day one started forming a friendship that we now continue to enjoy. So thank you, John, for those words. I didn't like the part though when you're saying, you told Avio you're marrying us all, because my wife, especially when we're in Joburg, she doesn't want to look after me. When you guys complain, she's like, "Ah, Chomien." But that's the story for another day. I have a message here from one of the mothers who braved it and left us back in those days, one of the early mothers as well, Umama Upem Chwete, who is now Deputy Minister. She's now watching live on YouTube, and obviously we spent, the guys would spend a lot of days and afternoons and Sundays, especially at their house, in the guise of going to visit Umonde, but really we just wanted better food. I think her message is as follows: condolences to Aviwa and Ntunja and family, Kaunda's mother and his friends. Kaunda was like a son to me and my family due to the close relationship we had with my children when they were dealt together. I used to enjoy watching their games with my late husband, Steve, especially when they played against Grey PE. And of course, that was the big fixture then, Selborne and PE. We knew we had to beat them. His Xhosa commentary was something to behold and made the experience of watching rugby extremely entertaining. Rest in peace, Kaunda. Rest in peace, Zizi. Regards, Pam Chwet. I think that then brings us to the end of that segment. Usindu sent me a message saying he's really struggling to connect. Umathosa spoke at the private funeral on behalf of Ifranz Kulenazutua. And I think we will leave it there. Zikhona ezinye videos ke bezikhona kodwa kasizozidlala ngoba feedback ithi quality is not good. What we'll do, we'll just play them at the end, and we'll play them directly from the broadcasting software to make it a lot easier. So we will move on. And I see Robert has joined us. Welcome, Rob. Thanks for making the time to come and honor your colleague and just remember him and say farewell to him. We'll hand over to you just now, but I think Ulanduga John touched on something which I couldn't respond to at the time. I would have been emotional, but I think the one other thing that John touched on, which is very important for Kaunda, is that he was very protective. There's this process here in junior school where if you're at Dale Junior, you choose to which high school, which res you go to in high school. There were still 4 or 5 reses back then, or hostels they call them. And I was the only one, I think, in junior school, or maybe Nano and one other person, Andrew Cawthorne, chose to go to Chupe, and Uyao, I think, was the only odd one who went to Presby, and all the other guys went to college. This big group of guys went into this res called, or this hostel called College House. And I think that was probably, for me, one of the best and the worst decisions I made. I think it was good because, as you've heard, these guys, they got up to a lot of stuff, and they deal. First team. I wasn't at that point in time, so they were never going to get thrown out of school. But if you're periphery like myself or Kash, yeah, the A team didn't depend on us at that point in time. But I think the more serious comment is around how Kaunda, even at Rugby, I would observe how he not only made time for the guys who were on the top marks or whatever. He'd come down and speak to, the most guy that you'd expect everyone else to ignore. And in fact, I remember vividly how he used to make time for even as matrix new boys and people who, in the boys' school concept of people, they were really not that important. And I think that's one shining character. And of course, John was much shorter than he is now. I don't know. John must have grown when he was 19 because he was half my height, and then I saw him 2 years later. But I think John was also one of those people who would cause a whole lot of nonsense and then run to Kaunda, and Kaunda would say, "I am the only one who bullies John," and that was the end of the conversation. But Rob, thanks. I think let's go straight to you. We've heard from Mutabane, who worked with him at the Xhosa commentary, but from a broadcasting perspective, entertaining perspective, Rob, as well as radio, just maybe share some thoughts that you can with us at this stage.
Yeah, thank you so much. And today, and it's such a great initiative that you've put together to literally spearhead a remembrance of our dear brother, and special mention as well, obviously, to the family, Nkosikazi Tando. I mean, Nkosikazi Kaunda Tando. It's still very surreal what we all facing right now. On the day, when you have conflict with yourself and you almost arguing with yourself that, no, listen, don't come and tell me what you're telling me because it cannot be real. And in just trying to motivate and make the family understand why and how we even got to like and love Kaunda, especially from a radio side. And you've got to remember that radio, when we started the concept of room dividers was basically to try and bring to the fore a big battle that we had on our hands. The big battle had to do with transformation. And as a former rugby player and a black player, he knew and he understood why we needed to have a platform again, that we rubber stamp and we make sure that people follow what transformation was all about. As uKaunda kwakuyena ufika kuqala lapha estudio. Ishow iqala ngo-6, by 5:30, even by 5 o'clock usefikile at reception waiting to go on air. I think a lot of the time he was a bit nervous in the beginning because we platform enkulu, and it was also a platform that he hadn't quite understood. But one thing I will always respect about Kaunda was his ability to always ask, his ability to double check, his ability to ensure Uguti, whatever he was about to do was the right thing. He didn't want to trample on people's toes and feelings. He wanted to do what he thought was right for rugby, but more especially for black rugby. And the journey of the room dividers was such that you've got to understand that when you're trying to tell a story of black rugby in a space where black rugby has been put aside, it is difficult. Even people in government, people who were in the ministry, wanted the show to be taken off air. But I always had to console the guys to say, don't give up, because the people that listen to the show every day, they value your input. Kaunda was always prepared. He always knew his stats. He always knew what was happening. He was Mr. Rugby personified. And his arguments with Utando Manana, his arguments with Lawrence Sipaka were very classic. But they depicted somebody who wanted to see change. And remember at the time, in fighting in Uhulmeni around a transformation, there was resistance, man. When you go into a World Cup, you don't want to have that many black people playing. So what are these guys talking about? So abantu abaphethe ne-rugby nabo, they had a problem with the show and they would complain. So we were the naughty boys of the airwaves, basically. But maybe what I'll say now has not been said before, but none of the members of the Room Dividers ever got paid a cent for the work that they did. Not even 1 cent. When one tried to fight for that, it was always rejected. I even tried to plead to know, Pala, these guys are here, but dingy malga petrol, what to do? It never happened. But deep down in their hearts, the main thing was about the fight for the black child to play rugby and to play it in a society that recognizes their talent. So you go on a national platform, Mahala, every single Tuesday, you're arriving there and you know, come end of the month, there is no salary that you're going to be deriving from that particular job that you're doing. But I think Kaunda got a salary when all of those black players in that Rugby World Cup final stepped up. That first 15, when they ran onto the field, that was his salary for the hard work that he had done in ensuring that transformation becomes a major part of it. I mean, I remember how his face lit up when the picture that he used, we profile on Twitter and also on WhatsApp, of him being in studio and also him being on TV. At the time, I was so famous, Manjamvana, you know. Then they used to pre-record the show. You're live on TV and you're live on radio. Hey, not too many people can do this thing. And somehow, I think it's John Jagger says Tombe, in the minute that he came onto the screen, and I showed it to him, and you could just see his face light up. And he was like, I know, and I think he endeared himself to that. And if there was one gift that one could have given him, was just knowing the difference that he made for all of these great soldiers, Abaye Japan, World Cup, Babuya Nendebe, was that soldier who was not liked at the broadcaster, was not liked at government level, was not liked at rugby leadership level, was part of a major charge to ensure rugby got the recognition. And even away from just the rugby, I mentioned it on the show on the day that he passed, towards the end of last year. And the power of God at times is so great that sometimes we don't understand, because one of his bucket lists was to go to Old Trafford. He loved his Manchester United. And he managed. I tried to help him get tickets. I was like, hey, Kaunda, this is going to be a difficult job for me, but I will try the best I can. True Kaunda style, he keeps quiet. Next thing, guess what? Saying UK, I've just arrived. And he sent me photos of himself, and he was so happy. But then, you know, God knows best. He fulfilled one of the bucket list issues that he wanted to do in his life. Got to watch his favorite team play, and it was just as early as late last year. But God knew that that was the only one chance that he had to fulfill that opportunity. He was a brother. He's somebody that transformed. isiXhosa, commentary yakhe was something we all wanted to listen to. The creativity, the ability to get to a pay TV, and all you wanted to do was change the language whenever you watched rugby, says something about the legacy that it does leave behind. And I do hope and pray that his colleagues, who I know are heartbroken right now, are able to take this fight and carry on with it. But Kubege was entertainer. Well, that is what Kaunda wanted to do. He was an entertainer. He made us laugh. He made us cry. Whatever the emotion was, commentator now, we my feelings and my emotions in the same breath, and that had never been done before, because I always said you had to be seem to be neutral. But Kaunda bore his heart into that rugby commentary, and that's what we loved about it, because it was different, it was unique, and he loved his country. and umndeni wonke nje siyasho ukuthi hayi silahlekelwe kakhulu. Nami as umuntu ade ngimazi uKaunda, who never ever stopped wanting to learn about broadcasting. I hadn't, but I am also honored to have known him.
Thank you, Rob. Masibulele Puti, and yeah, I think those words ring very true. Kaunda was definitely that kind of giant who would, you know, talk to power, but not without numbers. You know, I remember around about the time that John described when he was talking, he calls me, he's like, TJ, I want you to run the numbers for me. I think you look like you know what's going on with numbers. And he actually shared with me, he broke down the subscription numbers, and he says, you know, DSTV has this audience, but they don't watch rugby. I think TG 5 years, man, they must watch rugby. And I don't know what his final proposal looked like, but definitely I can imagine it wasn't about a conversation to say, no, you guys, you know, should give back. It should be a conversation about let's make money. And he really believed in the product. He believed in the impact of the product. And often he would say to me, but hey, you know, people underestimate even the impact of just being coached. And I think the mentality becomes different. And it's not just Isixhosa. I think it's right across all languages and right across our identity. And uKaunda, you know, I often have been saying this past 2 weeks, he was a freedom fighter, but he was a quiet one. In the sense that he wasn't trying to be political, but he spoke everything black. But the man lived it, and I think that tribute is very special. Thank you, Rob, and thanks for making the time. I know you've just come off air, and I also know that we didn't connect earlier to pre-test, so this was just going in blind.
No, I know, but it worked. I'm glad it did. I mean,
yeah,
like I say that it's a very special moment, and I know that go through. And it's nice that we can try and shape and give a sense of the struggles that Kaunda had. It'll make really treasure this. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to ask Tools to unpin because he has to do it his side. I've been trying to do it my side the whole time. That's why I've been failing. It's the wrong person doing the job, you know. Must delegate, I'm learning. The next person who's going to share a few words is Unik E. Nick is just going to obviously start by introducing himself, and he obviously represents quite a wide fraternity. And you know, as much as a freedom fighter that uKaunda was, he was also what I would call an evangelist. In other words, if you weren't a believer in his message, he didn't see you as the enemy. You know, he would talk to you and try to convince you in his way and learn your character. So whether you learned by force or by humor, and I think he used his dramatic art skills to persuade. And I think Nick represents a wide range of people, not just people who played rugby with him, but you know, people that had been touched. And I did. I was forced, actually. I wasn't by choice to put a video together for just to address the issue of the war cry the other day. But I think Nick speaks on behalf of the old alien unions, but also a few other people. So over to you, Nick. And thanks for joining us, Nick. I know you played rugby with him also beyond high school, so maybe just share a few stories from Joburg as well.
Thanks very much, Kaunda. I really appreciate that, man. I don't know if somebody wants to pin me up there then, and then we can carry on. Right click pin. Yeah, so I've actually got a few stories coming from quite a few people. Go on, just let me know if you can hear me properly. So I think I've said everything that I really need to say, and if I read some messages that came through from the old Alien Union, the Gauteng guys, and if I could tell you, I was in tears just reading it. This is going to be even harder. So I'm going to try and get through it as best as possible. please just bear with me if I struggle a bit. So the first one comes from Darren Ogden on behalf of the Gauteng Aldelian Union. Darren's obviously a little bit older. Just about me, I think if you don't know who I played rugby with Bev for many years, and I've known him since I was 10 years old. He was not a 9-year-old boy, and we've grown up pretty much together at hostels and things like that. So, and I've known him afterwards. But Darren Ogden, on behalf of the Gauteng Aldelian Union, he just says, for Bev, to write meaningful words about a man such as Bev, one feels totally unqualified and inept to the task. To put into words a life lived to the fullest, the influence he had on so many, the incalculable energy he had carried with him, any attempt one may make will only fall short. The effect his way too soon passing has had on so many people is a true reflection of what the world has lost. We don't need to mention his achievements, as those are all well documented, but certainly never boasted about by such a gentle giant. Maybe because his attitude was, there's always more per ardua ad astra, through hard work to the stars. This is the Dale College motto, and most certainly never personified in such a way that Bev managed to do. However, it is that and the task becomes easy. That always seemed to be the case, even though he spent so many hours refining his abilities. It was time to meet the boys for a drink and pose for a selfie, or to comment and banter about a sporting event, particularly Man United, and to even listen and give sound advice to those asking for it. He always gave so much more than time seemed to allow. You have reached the stars now, my friend. We now know you are sitting with the angels and reporting back on the week's sports, educating them on why and which team they should be supporting, Man United, shouting for your most loved teams while humbly accepting defeat or victory. Bev, the loss is ours. You have left us way too soon. That booming laugh that filled the whole of Bryanston Sports Club will never be forgotten. He used to come and visit us at the Bryanston Sports Club for the Old Daily meetings every now and again. Some background. But there will always be a glass filled for you at our monthly meetings. It is now time to grieve. It is our sadness that we won't have you around. But we know you would want us to pick ourselves up like you did so many times and move on. You would want us to think of the positive, a great life lived, and follow in that attitude. It is now time to thank you for the example you set, the happiness you brought to so many. You achieved the impossible, made a path where there was none. So thank you, Bev. Darren Ogden and the Gauteng Old Boys. This is from, I've got two messages from guys that were his captains at school and friends. The first one comes from Warren Brett, who was with him in the year 2000. They had an incredible year. Not as good as ours, but a very good year. Tando's smiling nicely there. Nick, I'm at loss for words when it comes to Bev. Although after school our paths didn't cross as much as I'd like to, he was still instrumental in the love and success at Dale College, in my love and its success at Dale College. And we became close friends early in my school days. Most definitely contributed by his big heart, big smile, and very loud exuberance. My earliest memory of Bev was when we jumped into my car with my mom, dad, myself, and a huge boerboel for a lift to Queenstown for our first cricket game of the season. I forgot he wasn't a bad cricketer too, old Bev. As you can imagine, it was an interesting couple of hours, which proved the perfect way to cement what would become a great friendship. His love for rugby, and his love for rugby, not only playing, but his knowledge was infectious, and coming from a school where I had absolutely no idea about rugby, before I had a keen interest to duplicate his stature and quality on the field. He was a gentle giant, and so it seemed. Sorry, my wife just walked in. No thanks. He was a gentle giant, and so it seemed as a youngster with the largest heart that drew people towards him. Off the field and in the classroom, there was also a strong debate between him and the crew, Monde, Vuyo, Ngange, and like all the rest, he says, yeah, and company. These would rage in tone and battle until silenced, often by the big man. So it surprised no one. So it was no surprise to me he went on to share his two loves of debate and rugby while pioneering in the commentary scene. I will always remember his lawyer-like skills set to never lose the debate, with his charismatic level of changing tones as the debate would ebb and flow. It only rings joy for me that the world was able to enjoy this through the SuperSport endeavors. He, as so many have said, is a gigantic loss to society and to all those that he had come across, an individual with a big heart and big appetite to make change in the world. Rest in peace, Bev. Gone but never forgotten. Your story will echo for generations to come. Your life will be hailed as a game changer, and you was a game changer to the youth that will follow in your footsteps. Warren Brett, a friend of his from school, also played first team rugby with him. This tribute, I don't know if everybody knows, but he did some incredible work. We know him as the entertainer, the man you supporter, the amazing rugby player, but he was also an incredible human. And through his love for rugby and love for people and love for entertaining, he always gave back without asking anything in return. And he had a great relationship with the guys at Hollywood Bets, and they were putting in so many good things. And this is from a friend of ours from school who's the CEO of Hollywood Bets, Rowan Cross, and he just wants to talk about what Bev meant to the Hollywood team. So just a tribute to Kaunda from Hollywood Bets. On behalf of Hollywood Bets team, we are devastated by the passing of a truly great man, our brother Kaunda Ntunja. The loss of a fellow team member and a brand ambassador weighs heavy on our hearts. He was and remains a true inspiration to all of us. We worked closely with him in our sponsorship of Parker Rugby Show, and his love for the game was immeasurable. He was a pioneer not only for the Xhosa rugby commentary in South Africa, but also for growth of the game at grassroots levels in impoverished communities. Kaunda understood the value of club rugby, especially at a community level, and how important it is to build the foundation of the game. Kaunda's impact on the game of rugby was far-reaching and felt throughout South Africa, not only because of his descriptive, creative, and captivating Xhosa commentary, rugby commentary, but because of his mission to showcase rugby talent in impoverished communities. He gave disadvantaged clubs, players, and coaches a platform to showcase their abilities, history, and needs. Through Hollywood sponsorship of the Parker Show, we partnered with him on 25, I didn't know that, 25 of these initiatives across the country in the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, as well as Hollywood Bets Murray Cup. We are truly privileged to have worked with him on these projects. And it was an honor having him on as one of our Hollywood Bets brand ambassadors. His humility and determination matched his passion. And this was always evident in his actions. Kaunda would always have time for any person within the Hollywood Bets team and took time to ask each person how they were, how their family was. He always engaged with so much passion about which club needed help, why they needed help, how help would help the community, the team, the coach. At handovers across the country, he spent time talking to the coach, the management of the club, the team captain, inspiring them, giving them ideas, giving them support. They all looked up to him with respect and admiration. He would meet a new person on our team for a film shoot, and within hours after the shoot, we would get a call from the team member about how amazing Kaunda was and how he was inspired, impacted by them, or by him. It just happened so naturally. Kaunda was passionate about his marketing, and his creativity was brilliant. We know this. Kaunda, oh, Bev, amazing. We would have many random chats about new ideas, possibilities, ventures, adverts, events. He was always thinking about the new and about what could be next. More recently, Kaunda had a vision of giving back to Dell College and was creating a bursary fund to see one of the star Dell College boys given an opportunity to boost their studies and sporting career after school. We will continue these discussions in his name. There is a strong will within all of us to continue his legacy. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. He will be greatly missed, and we hope to carry on his legacy of growing the game at grassroots levels in the years to come. He's gone too soon, but leaves a legacy when it comes to the game of rugby in South Africa. His unforgettable commentaries will be remembered forever, but so will the impact he made on all of our lives. We had so many tears in our office at the time, which is evident on how Kaunda had impacted the hundreds of lives within our business. We say goodbye to a colleague, a friend, and a legend. Kaunda's strength and spirit will stay with us always. We promise to continue the incredible work he has started in his honor. Our hearts are with his family during this difficult time and this very, very sad time. Hamagahle Zizi. That was from Hollywood Bets. They did some great work. And Rowan Cross, thank you very much for the message and the kind words. Just like to talk about, we spoke about how he used to give himself without asking anything in return. I don't know how many times he helped people. Ndumiso Lindy Rooster talks about, when, well, let me read what he said. It was really beautiful. I just had to take some time off to digest this one. We lost a great one here. There's a lifetime brotherhood bond we share with people we went to school with. In fact, it's a bond by all the guys who went to any boarding school. Never mind that we get on each other's cases sometimes. It's part of the spirit. Bev was a passionate individual, loud, funny, and just full of life. He walks into a room and you feel his presence. The man who gave us the best also rugby commentary. I watched him build that from ground up and put together a team. At some point, he used to call me to do SuperSport voiceovers. I posted one time that I was doing a one-man show, and he was immediately inviting me to his Paka show in his live voice. Ndura, we're going to speak a bit about rugby when I talk about your lock-playing days in high school and then market your show. That was Bev. Always putting his people on. Now, most of you make a mistake about Kaunda playing 99. This is talking about the 2000s and the 99s. You can't really compare. There were two different eras, but yeah, Kaunda always came back to our reunions to the 2009 and 2019. He even came back last year.
And you're doing so well.
I know, I'm sorry. Yeah. Definitely gone soon. Condolences to his family and friends. Rest in peace, brother. Lala Ngokolo Dlamini. Ozizi Madot. So I'll just finish off with something from a lot of the overseas boys and family, and I'm sure a lot of you saw the video that went around that came out of Jersey with Kaunda, his name in the sand, and the video. It was really a beautiful tribute, and Jason Hosty wrote a few words down, and also sent it from all the people there, and yeah, I think this is a wonderful. It was a wonderful tribute from everybody over there. Dear Aviwe, the impact Kaunda made at Dell College has given him the title of game changer. He demanded excellence. He insisted on courage and applied exceptional passion into everything he did. Playing rugby alongside him was an honor. To captain such a formidable person was a challenge. And that challenge brought out the best in me and every one of his teammates. Kaunda had the amazing talent of being able to orchestrate a game and dramatically intimidate every opponent he came up against with a ferocity and flair I had never seen before. His impressive on-field commentating of every sidestep and an emphatic run he made should have given us all a clue that he was an amazing professional ambassador. What an amazing professional and ambassador he would become for the game of rugby. He has paved the way for generations to come and inspire every person to courageously strive for whatever they want to achieve in life. His booming voice would echo through the corridors of Dale College. His emphatic laughter was heard by all who knew him, and his smile captured 1,000 moments of joy. It was an honor to know the boy, the man and the father that he became, such a legend amongst legends. Words cannot justify the grief, the sorrow, nor the sadness we have felt. I share your heartache, and we all had such agonizing moments of remembrance of a wonderful man your husband is. His memory will never fade. He lives on in all of us. Dear Malani, your father was a friend. He was a great and courageous man. You always remember to be very, very proud of your father. Just like all of us. He loved you infinitely and will be watching over you forever. When your little sibling arrives, you tell him every day what an amazing man he was. He will be with you and watching over you every day from heaven. Please make sure you say hi to him from me. All my love, Joseph Husty. And just from my side, to Bear's family, I'm truly, truly sorry. This isn't fair. I'll be where your husband was one of the good guys. Forever putting others before himself. Know that you and your girl and your boy will forever be part of the Kaunda's extended Dale family. We miss him dearly, so dearly. But we are grateful for every moment we got to share with your amazing, wonderful person. To Bev's precious little darlings, on the pitch, your dad used to say to me, give Ntunja the ball. Grab life with enthusiasm and confidence and run with it, because you are Ntunja and nobody ran better than Utata. We have always been so proud of your dad. You will be too. And we are so proud of you. Lala. Thank you.
Nick, I always knew that there was some black in your blood. Now the length of this kills me. Hey, what happened to your 7 minutes?
Below the belt, eh?
But yeah, no, thank you for the heartfelt words, and to Darren, Dale legend, someone who's really always active and ready to give back to the school. Really appreciate those words. Nick, I don't know why you introduced Warren as Kaunda's captain. Kaunda was Warren's captain.
Right.
I'll tell you what happened. I played in that team. Kaunda was our first captain, and I think he spotted his mouth one too many times about team selection, and he got the job. I'm not sure who was next. It might have been Brad, Rudy, or me, but one of us, I certainly got it when we were at Saints. The captain's armband only lasted a few games as well. And Kaunda, in his wisdom, when I got the armband, he came to me and he said, hey, and he spent half an hour with me and said, no, this is what you must do and whatever. So he was always looking out. It was an honor, definitely, to captain for those few games, but I also got the chop. And then Brett won it. And I think Brett really wore it with pride and really one of the better captains I've seen, and certainly courageous in that deal, and inspirational as well. And I think a part of what you said there talks about the folklore that Kaunda enjoys, and I hope Ngungange will talk about this a bit later. But I remember one of the games, this is after he lost his armband, he managed to convince the ref that his shirt was torn, and he was right in front of the cage's girls. And of course, he had to change the shirt. There's no other way to change the shirt but to take it off. We teased him now in because he just wanted to take his shirt off. But that was the entertainer that Kaunda was, but certainly captained by Warren Brett in that game. But yeah, thanks, Warren. My main point for the words. Rowan, I'm pleased that you've committed to continuing the initiatives. Certainly, you are the partner of the 2000, I think, matric initiative, as well as a few others, including the bursary. So we'll hold you to that. And of course, Jason, yeah, and all of the family that's over there, De Oliveira and a few of the guys. Thanks, guys, for the words and the video. And really has been a very tough time for all of us. Kaunda touched so many lives, and I think that's coming through. As I said earlier, we're not going to show the videos, but I do want to say that watch it after this, because we're going to show it once we've done with the teams, and we're going to straight into the YouTube channel, and we'll keep it there just if you want to watch the tributes as well. But there is definitely one from Chris Groom, who was the superintendent at DV Taylor House at the time. So thanks, Chris, for the Chris family, the Groom family, in fact, for the video. I know the cousins, the Kyamzache cousins, also put videos through, etc., etc. So do enjoy the videos when they come through. The one person who wasn't mentioned, in fact, two people I just want to touch on before we move to the other speakers. And you forgive me because we're talking about our dear friend, and I know it's past. Last I checked, there were 580 people, but certainly I think we can enjoy a few more minutes, because that's what Bev would have enjoyed, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the speakers that will come up as well. This is from a guy who was one of the 92 group as well, Umrapo Usei Solap. He just sent me a text. He says, I recall a time when I was 11 or 12, Kaunda was about 9. We pretty much had just arrived at Del Junior, starting to get acquainted with rugby. We had a rude awakening trying to wrap our heads around this new sport and how to play it. We somehow managed to get into the A teams, probably because of our heights, other speed, but we knew we were in trouble. So before the matches started, or when the matches started, we'd be in trouble. We had to face real opposition. So we started playing against each other, and the only place we could play was a piece of grass between the sub-A block and the swimming pool. I can still remember vividly playing on a Saturday afternoon before a Currie Cup match between Natal and Transvaal. And something happened that afternoon. It's as if someone switched on a light bulb, and something went on in Kaunda's head. The way he ran, he took picked up the rugby ball and passed it. Whatever he did was just very different, and much better than everyone else. After that, we knew we had to stop playing rugby, and this is where timing comes in. We knew we had to stop because we didn't want the older guys, but Vezom Kaund. But that was from Umbrabo. And then there's one other one, just which also really speaks to what Nick was saying. It's from I won't mention his name. It doesn't really matter who he is. But he says Tabev, so this guy was much younger. Tabev is easily one of the greatest schoolboy rugby players I ever saw. The fact that I only got to watch him twice says a lot about his talent and aura. In primary school, together with a few mates, we ran up to Tabev as fast as we could after the one game, and just to get a low 5. Mind you, we were playing for, and we were at a rival school that had just lost to the Dale first team. All that didn't matter because he was basically a demigod to us. And I think those words and a few other tributes you'll see just really continue to paint a picture of this great man who's just given so much to all of us. Can we maybe just press on? I know there's just 3 more speakers that are coming through. But I think first let's hand over to the school principal. He's been on for quite a while. He says I mustn't call him sir. We all grew up calling principal sir. Godshaw. He called me yesterday. I think we had a chat and wanted to do a video. And I said, listen, if you're gonna speak for 4 or 5 minutes, I think just rather join the call. Really a privilege to have you, and looking forward to hearing the very little introduction. But I do know very personally that there was a lot of big plans, and Kaunda really wanted to give back to the school. So very fitting for you to join us, sir. Thank you for joining us. And then I won't say a word, just switch right over to Ngange, who will just also speak on behalf of himself and friends, but also played with Kaunda at Ubumbo, not just at high school. And Ngange will just conclude. And then, of course, we'll just hear a few words from the family. And then, of course, none other than Makesh will close off for us. So we're nearly there. But firstly, over to you, Mr. Shaw. Oh, Garth, you said I must call you.
Thanks, Tandwa, and thank you to you and your team. Well done on putting this together. I really do think it's a fitting celebration of a great person. Yeah, I think as headmaster of Dale College, it's an honour for me to be able to greet you on behalf of the school and to say a few words on the school's behalf. I think before I start, I'd like to personally express my condolences again to the Ntunja family. Tando, Mama Ntunja, Kaunda's passing on top of that of Tata and uncle and aunt that I'm aware of. This must be one of the most devastating times for you as a family, and please know that this has devastated us as a school. But we aware that the pain that we bear does not compare to that which you carry, and please know that you're in our thoughts and prayers. And then Aviwe, if I may, especially. And I say this as a young father myself with a young family. I want you to know that I'm carrying you and your little ones, and especially with the baby coming, especially in my thoughts and prayers in this time. I wish there was more that we could do to support you in this time. And I want to say, if there is anything that we can do, please don't hesitate to call. All right. I think in bringing tribute to Kaunda, it was special for me to be able to sit and think about who Kaunda was and what he has represented to Dale College. And I think I'd like to bring honour to his name in 3 different aspects. The first of those is in the light of the Dalian that Kaunda was. You'll see I'm wearing this rugby jersey similar to what Nick was wearing. It comes from the same era, although I was on the other end of the rugby field. Yeah, I mean, other than Kaunda tackling me very hard once that I can remember when I tried to pick up and drive on the Dale College line in 2000, I obviously didn't know Kaunda very well from his school days, but it's been a huge privilege for me to be able to connect with some of his old teachers and rugby coaches over the last and fellow learners, fellow Dalians over the last week or so. And the fondness and love with which they have all recounted stories has been tangible to me, and it's very clear that Kaunda was a special Dalian during his time at Dale College. Some of the words that have been used to describe Kaunda include respectful, dignified, fun, loud, never-ending, hard-working. One member of staff said a true Dalian. I won't say who it was, but he said it's not a scabenga like the kids of today. But yeah, it was just great for me to hear some of these stories, and interesting to chat to both Mr. Nzima and Mr. Adam, who was still at the school and taught him, during his time. They both spoke of Kaunda's love for a debate and the fact that he would never just accept things the way that they are. And this is beautiful, and I want to say this, and I say it to the kids, you've got to ask questions. We need more of this in South Africa and at Dale College. People who don't just accept the status quo, but interrogate things. And for me, that's a beautiful legacy of who Kaunda was. Mike Wesson, his rugby coach over a number of years at school, recounted many special memories. I had a lovely conversation with him, and just great memories he has of working with Kaunda. And he spoke especially of Kaunda's ability to weld a team together. I think he coached him 3 years through school, but then also he spoke about coaching at under 21 level at the Sharks. And the story, what I pick up from the story is that Kaunda joined the team, I'm assuming a couple of weeks into the season. But what's really significant is how Kaunda's presence and him joining the team really turned around the trajectory of that season. And this is poignant for me. In South Africa, we desperately need people who have the ability and the skill to weld together people from different walks of life in our divided society. And through talking to Mike, it was apparent to me that Kaunda had the leadership skills and the personality and the ability to do that. And it's important to me that the Dalians of today can do that. And Kaunda clearly personified that skill. The second thing I'd like to say, from the school's perspective, is about the role model that Kaunda was. Obviously, the legacy that Kaunda has left behind from his time at Dale College marks him as a powerful role model. The hardworking achiever he was. He will live on in Dale College folklore, his name on the honours board, his photo, the legacy of the player he was. But I think it's important to say that there's a more powerful legacy, and I'd like to draw on that. We all know about the impact his commentary has had in South Africa and around the world, and Robert also addressed this. The impact Kaunda had on the young black rugby player in South Africa. And I want to recount the story. One of the Dalians I spoke to has professional ambitions, and he said to me, "Sir, I dream of Uzizi one day giving me a nickname like he gave Apulele Fassi, the nickname Weekend Special." And it's so good for me to hear the story from one of the Dalians I'm very close to. Kaunda was unique. He was proud of who he was, and he was willing to be an individual, and he was true to himself. And this is what we need, in terms of the role model that he was. He was able to hang up his boots from his professional rugby career and go and follow his passion of drama. Someone who had the persona to infiltrate the supersport structures and the TVs of people around the world and say, "I'm Xhosa and I'm proud of it." I feel I need to say this. What has devastated me almost more than anything else is, was the role model that Kaunda was to black kids around the world. And this is as well what Robert was saying. Here was an example of why Black Lives Matter, and his inspiration to those kids in particular at Dale College and elsewhere will be hugely missed. And then I think the third thing to say regarding Kaunda was about the servant that he was to Dale College, and Nick touched on this as well. The last time that I was in contact with Kaunda was on the weekend of what was meant to be our reunion this year, his 20-year reunion. We shared some banter about when we played each other in 2000, but he also updated me on the progress for the donations that he was rallying up for the renovation of Frank Joubert Hostel. And Kaunda was a servant. He wanted to give back to his alma mater, and this is an invaluable legacy to us. Not only for the financial contribution, but again, it role models that servant heart that he had to future generations of Dalians. This ties into what I was saying earlier. Kaunda knew where he came from, and he remembered that. And for me, that's a beautiful character trait, and one which we as a school cherish. He was willing to use his aura and his position to rally support, but then also to put his money where his mouth was, and to lead by example. I think we know Kaunda will be missed. His legacy will remain, and we need to find ways to commemorate his name in an appropriate way. And that's an exciting challenge for us at Dale College. How can we keep the memory of who Kaunda was, and keep that special. So in closure, thank you, Tondo and team, for putting this together. It's been special for me to follow it. And I want to say thank you to everybody listening in here. Thank you to those who've played a role in making Kaunda the person he was, the blessing he was to all of us in South Africa and at Dale College. And then lastly, obviously, condolences again to the Ntunja family. Our hearts and our prayers are with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Garth. I did say earlier I wasn't going to say anything, but so I must say a few things. I think your comments around I am black, and I'm proud of it, really resonate. And I think Kaunda lived those ideals. He really was the freedom fighter in my mind, fought for people's rights to be who they are. And the whole emotional settlement, which is really not complete post 94. Kaunda was that kind of person, and I really want to echo your words. Of course, it's not just him. I think there were countless teachers along the way who, against status quo, because not all teachers, when we were there, were as woke as you are. I won't mention names in case I sort of offend Mr. Clark and the guys, but Mr. Butler used to wake us up in Kosa. I remember I was 11, 12, joining junior school, and this headmaster was like, Vugani, and I really think he fought, and I don't think he really deserves the credit that he deserved. Of course, now 26 years later, we realize what he was trying to achieve, but at that time, I think he was an outcast and an outlier. And the other point which you made, which really touched me, was the whole idea that Kaunda was the leader, but Kaunda could also lead from the back. He could support something else that he thought was worthwhile. He wasn't always wanting to be in the spotlight. And I shared a story earlier about him supporting not me, but Warren and a few other guys who, after he lost the captaincy, not lost it, but I think we realized that he'd rather focus on his game. Or at least that's what the coach said. But he really supported everyone wholeheartedly, and I think that was great point that you made there. I think it does present. His legacy does present an opportunity for not just the school but for society to realize and appreciate him for who he is. I think he's right up there with the Dale legend, whether it's Langam or C.B. Jennings, and really I would hope the school would recognize him in due course. And lastly, last time I was there, I looked at the school hymn, and I was any Guicho in the school hymn. There were old school war cries, but and whatever, but Guicho, and I would hope that there as well. So thanks for your address. I really appreciate that, and I think everyone who's listening and will listen in the future, because there will be a recording, will learn and pick up a few things from what you've said. Ngange, can I bring you in here? I know you're raring to go, and I think you might have even worn a suit.
Yes, I did. I think it's appropriate for the occasion. Thanks, Tando. Greetings to everyone, especially
sorry, Ngange, sorry. Ngange was supposed to speak together with Umonde. Umonde was worried about how Itswele and the onion would get to him and the condition. I think Umonde's not alone. I think all of us maybe put up a better brave face than what it is. I think it's still quite raw for a lot of us. And so Umonde, I appreciate you just saying you'd rather text a few things and ask Ngange to speak on his own and not speak with him. So Umonde has just asked for that space, and I think let's appreciate and respect that. But do thank you, Umonde, for saying that, and I think Max also did the same.
Thank you, Tando. No, I concur with those sentiments for Umonde. I think I was on the verge of breaking down myself listening to Nick a bit earlier. That was tough. The resonation in his voice about our great friend that we've lost brought the emotion of the moment right through me. But yeah, I just want to say greetings to everyone, especially to ifamily kaKaunda. Ndiyabulisa kumama, ndiyabulisa Aviwe, Uza, and nawe Thando. I know I'm written down as a speaker representing Ubuntu, which I am, but I'm also a lifelong friend, Kaunda, we met when we were 10 years old on his arrival at Dale Junior. He was slightly overweight, so I guess I took an immediate shining to him because you wouldn't guess it now looking at my washboard abs, but I was an overweight kid myself. Bev came across as a shy kid who actually preferred to be left alone. Sounds strange to everybody else who's known Bev since then. So us being Dale veterans at the time, us being Omonda Zonde, Giyao, Chumapo, Roden King, Kanyapda, to name a few. Us being old hands at the school, given our 12 months head start on Kaunda at Dale, we took him in and we showed him the ropes. From that day, the bunch of us were inseparable. I mean, literally. As hostel boys, we all made sure we were in the same dorm. From standard 1 in 1991 to matric in the year 2000. So to say we grew up together is an understatement. In between, in those years, we picked up some straddlers if friendship would be people like John Maha, Tato Corbett, Banim Fabe, Jonathan Els, David John, and a lot more. There's nothing we didn't do together. There's nothing we didn't know about each other. I mean, things like who was the last person to wet his bed while we were young. We know that. To be honest and share it to you, Kaunda was actually the last person in our friendship group to wet his bed. We even were there for each other when we were mourning the loss of loved ones. Some of us younger than others. There's no moment that we didn't experience together. In that time, that young, shy Kaunda shared his baby fat and grew into our entertainer, both on and off the field. He was always telling jokes, coming up with catchphrases, other terms unique to our little group. He just had that flair, that flair for theatrics. I think as John touched upon, he even, wrote a play in high school. Naturally, he conscripted us, sorry, untalented bunch, to play characters. Yet we still won the best school play that year, He always pushed us and he inspired us to get out of our comfort zones and do better, thus be better. It was these inspirational qualities, and obviously coupled with immense amount of talent, that saw him selected as a captain of the SA school teams in 2000 and captain of the SA 19 rugby team at the Junior World Champs in 2001. Thereafter, he rose quickly up the professional ranks to ultimately lifting the Currie Cup with the Cheetahs. Or as you would say, that is net Ian Das, just Cheetahs. Those were some of his favorite years in rugby, playing alongside the current Springbok coach, Rassie Erasmus. Those years made him, and I guess by extension us, lifelong Cheetah fans. It was during that period, around 2005, that Kaunda first crossed paths with Ubumbo. Ubumbo had been founded in 2002 by Umali Kosi and friends as a UCT internal rugby league team, tilted towards giving black rugby players an opportunity to showcase their skills, and importantly, in an environment where they were comfortable. Ubumbo can now count the likes of Umpom Biozo, former SA Sevens captain, and Don Aman of the Chiefs as alumni. But more than that, more than just being a rugby team, Ubumbo also sought to create awareness, to take rugby into the rural and, I guess, peri-urban communities. And these were qualities that spoke to the humanitarian in Kaunda, who, when we approached and offered him to join us on the tour to bring the awareness, he gleefully accepted. I'm sure this is current news to his professional rugby team contract holders at the time. But Kaunda came on tour with us to Mthatha, and he played, and he put on a number of bone-crunching tackles, as well as line breaks, the usual Kaunda running with the ball. Kaunda thoroughly enjoyed being part of the team, and also especially enjoy spreading rugby into the far reaches of the country. In fact, I can even recall him joking years later during a joint Ubumbo Clip Drift rugby chat event. He said, "I'm sure there's still some grown men in Mthatha who are nursing injuries for some of the tackles I delivered in that." So he enjoyed the rugby game itself. But I think it was the message that resonated with him. So it was not that surprising to see Kaunda turn to commentary when his injuries curtailed his career. It was the perfect blend of entertainment and education. See, to him, rugby was everyone's game. a game he grew up on. So did his friends, his family, and his extended community. A game with a rich history in the Black community. However, it was an unacknowledged history, and Kaunda wanted to address that. He saw commentary not only as a way to take the game to the people in their own language, using their own idioms, but also as a medium to share Black rugby history, to tell the stories of Kwaru and the South African Black rugby legends, like Othemba Ludwaba, Zangosha, Wallace Kotyeni, Norman Mbiko, Peter Carter, Wilfred Gove, and Bakaya Jack, just to mention a few. He did this so that the next generation of Black rugby talent doesn't feel out of place playing the game. Or, as he put in his own words, lo mdlalo wombhoxo ngowethu nathi kwaye asilahlekanga xa siphethe le bhola, which means this is our game too, and we are not lost when we hold this oval ball in our hand. I don't know if this passion came from his own experiences in rugby, but he certainly was adamant that no Black child will feel like a stranger for choosing and embracing the game. You see, to Kaunda, there ought not be organizations like Hubu. There ought not be a need for organizations. There ought not be the need to take the game to marginalized communities, nor to make Black players feel welcomed in the game. To him, the game should already belong to everyone, in everyone's language, and everyone should already feel welcomed. He dedicated his life to that goal. And when one can watch an arm so nonchalantly offloading a ball, with the nation holding its collective breath, to a vacant Mapimpi, to score SA's very first try in the Rugby World Cup, right under the sticks, while hearing the commentary in your home language, well then it most certainly starts feeling like our game too. That's who Kaunda was, a man who could not sit idly by when there was an important matter to be addressed. He stood up, and he made this country more inclusive, and all the better for it. And he did so in the most loving and embracing way, which is tough to do, particularly in the context of our nation's history. You see, it's far easier to fight each other from our respective corners than it is to choose to come together for a common cause. Kaunda knew that, and he chose the latter route. Love and unity was Kaunda's way. That is Kaunda's legacy. He stood up. I'm sure where he is, somewhere watching, belting his hearty laugh at the hoopla going on in his name, he would tell us not to mourn. For his was a well-spent life, despite his limited years on earth. Instead, he would challenge us by saying, Phakamani eSoweto, Phakamani eMdantsane Thembisa, naseKhayelitsha, Phakamani eGcuwa, eGautrain, nakwezo boardroom zenu. Phakamani nimele abantu abahluphekileyo. Phakamani apho nibona ucalucalulo phakathi kwentlanga. Phakamani apho nibona ukungalingani babantu. Lowo umyalezo uZizi asishiye nawo. Ngaloo mazwi amajarha athi hamba Ntunja. Umele umzi ontsundu. Goduka Jamakazi J. Siyabulela isizwe. Dala ngoxolo zize lihle. Imizamo uyizamile, uGatso ulufezi. Thuma makaKhawu Viwe and Kaunda's daughters sitting there. Condolences to the family. Kodwa sikhona kwaye sizazisondeza kuni kakhulu ukuya phambili. Ngaloo mazwi ndithi hamba kakuhle ntombi yam. You have been a leader. You have been a light. One that we will keep shining forward. Enkosi.
Hey. Masibulele Ndabasa. Sibulele Jwa. Palomazwi. I think indeed Kaunda is up there laughing at us, or down there laughing at us. looking at us, monkeys splashing.
Two monkeys splashing in the ocean.
But I think you left out one piece to Akhandisuke. Please, man, can you just share with us the one monumental mistake he made in his life, entering a competition called Mr. Dale?
Oh no, Tato, I think that story is better left told by you. Yeah, they are adults in this space. I'd rather not.
All right, no, thanks, Ngange, for giving us that perspective. I think one of the key things about that tour, which I am Tata from a Ubungo perspective, was that it really hit home. I think a lot of us at the time, maybe not now, in environment, white-dominated environments, let's be honest. And I think for a lot of people who grow up in those kind of schools, it hits home when you get to varsity, when you leave school. But we were able to connect ourselves and say, listen, we grew up in the 90s, and it didn't matter. So why when you come to UCT, should you now be relegated to wing, if you're black? And I think we just felt we wanted to create our own home. It wasn't political at the time. It was just about being able to play fly-off if you wanted to, because, Uvij was allowed to play fly-off in high school, was he? Maybe not. Okay. But the point is, when we got to that tour in Tata, and Kaunda came and joined us, other people who joined us, in that kind of style. We call them the Expendables. Omwali Soul, MK, who was at PE at the time, Major Man, and a few other guys, from Queens, etc. The one thing that was actually quite important is that, in the UCT kind of environment, we were the black team at UCT, Boombo, and we just played with it. Okay, of course, we had Dan Watson, who also sent a video, and a few other guys playing with us. Or Vince, and you mentioned that, or Donaman, and a few guys. But for me, in the UCT environment, you were too black to be white, if I may be frank. But when you get to Mtata, you are too white to be black, you coconut. And I think, that kind of experience, to share it with Kaunda and to just, afterwards have a few orange juices now, and reflect on the need actually that we need to have. I mean, the one thing he said to me is, we need to do this a lot more, and play in the black tournament. It was the Luum Chizana tournament. And knowing, going right back in high school, I didn't make the border 18. I made the C team, academy team, they called it, the B team, whatever. Along with Oprah Lee Rudy, who didn't come on tour, but that's a story for another day. No one looked up to playing for the B team. Everyone wanted to make the border A, and of course we had Kaunda, who had already made the team and captain, so I didn't have a chance because I was 8th man, he was flank. But the point really is, and that's not really why I made it, I wasn't good enough. But the point is that he's the only guy who called me straight after that. Him and another guy called Utemba Nyagakia, who was from Epofolo, and wanted me to go play for the team. The Heritage Tour Mtata. For him, it was an eye-opener. We got there and we were promised accommodation. We got sent to a classroom, and thanks to Kaunda and a few of the Expendables. But the point it was a turning point, certainly in my mind, around my understanding of the impact that I need to make in all of that. Thanks, Ngange, for sharing. Really, really most important story, and I think a lot of stories. Because I will ask Utando to maybe just share a few words as his sister, and then of course our viewer straight after as his wife, just maybe to just share a few reflections, and then of course Ukanya, straight to Ukanya to just close off. Thanks, Magesh. Over to you, Tando.
Enkosi Gama, and I'll be very brief because ixesha seliphelile. Kodwa ndifuna ukubulela Gama for the efforts that you put together. Ibingumsebenzi omhle kakhulu lona Thando and Ubumbo legends Ngange. Jwaha uthethe kamnandi kakhulu John. Siyakubona Khaz. Ndifuna ukuthi I think the biggest tragedy associated with death is the tragedy of regret. And ndifuna ukuthi wonke umuntu othethileyo namhlanje and every person that also sent messages throughout, I think can safely say that they don't associate regret, the word regret, with their memory of Kaunda and how they related to Kaunda. I think uKaunda, everyone gave uKaunda his flowers as happy. Everyone gave uKaunda his flowers as happy. And you know, umsebenzi wakhe ubumninzi kakhulu, ininzi into ayenzileyo. But I really want to emphasize that moment in November last year during the Rugby World Cup final, when all of those different elements came together and the universe just conspired in such a huge way to give uDlamini his flowers. And in that moment and following that moment, up until I believe he took his last breath 2 weeks ago, a week ago, he knew he was loved, Kaunda. He knew he was loved, uDlamini. And usithandile kakhulu isizwe. Usithandile kakhulu isizwe, uzithandile izihlobo zakhe. Kakhulu. Ngamanye amathuba sibe ngathi thina singasenza izifemeli izihlobo nazi ngaphambili. But we had to concede into yoba uKaunda akangowethu. Nangona sizelwe naye, sakhula naye, ezalwa ngumama notata. Zihlobo sifuna ubulela nisifunqule njengosapho lakwaNtunja throughout. Nisifunqule ngemithandazo yenu, nisifunqule ngemiyalezo ne-calls zenu, ngendlela nangendlela enenasixhasa ngazo. Ndiyabulela bethunana. Andifuni uqhubekeka ukuthetha kuba ndifuna ushiya indawo for unkosikazi akhe anabe kakuhle kuba yena liciko ngaphezu kunam. Mna ndiyabhala, yeyona nto endiyistrongo kakhulu kuyo. Ndiyabulela kakhulu enkosi ithando. Thank you so much, everyone.
Tandoge, I will assume that I can just jump straight into my tribute to my
Yes,
husband.
you guys are joined at the hip now.
Okay, great. Okay, firstly, I'd like to greet Wonke Umdokoyo, friends, our friends, family members, the entire Dalian community, the media fraternity, Kaunda's colleagues who are amongst us, the Hollywood Bits family, Ubombo family as well, and the entire rugby nation at large that is with us here today. And I'll be clear that I emphasized our friends because Kaunda was very close to Abantu Bakhe. His friends were near and dear to him, and as a result, I ended up having to adopt a lot of his friends. Many of them here would have tasted my cooking at some point or the other endlini, through the hosting that I often had to do as a result of the person that Kaunda was. I will actually recall that when Kaunda sought his blessing to take a wife from his father, the first question was, Mfondini na imali? And then the second question was, phofu lo mntana uyakwazi uba umuntu wetshomi wena ngoba uyazithanda iitshomi zakho wena, and if lo mntana akayi-understandi loo nto soze alunge ntana. That was the precondition to me being accepted and the blessing being granted for us to go into union. I met my husband in 2010, and this was now during the festive period where ibas is pity, and you know ababhuti bafika ngo-GP uvela uqonda eyi nkosi yam awubazi noba baze with good or bad intentions. So As reluctant as I was initially, we hit it off almost immediately, and we were truly what you would call soulmates. The first day Kaunda and I met, we met up with a friend of his, speech Namf, and literally as we were driving in the car, we were talking about our shared love for the city of Durban. And I was saying, I would love to go settle there one day. And Kaunda turns around and looks at Speech and says, yes, Speech, mandimtshade man lo sisi, siyohlala eDurban. Siyohlala eBalito nalo sisi, ndimtshade, I will make her my wife. And this was day one. This was literally day one. And I thought to myself, Jesus, guy, forward, but I guess it was a premonition on his end, because here we are, after 10 years later, we were still joined to the hip. And it's been the most beautiful number of years of my life. My husband truly was a larger than life character in every possible way. I feel so blessed to have shared a life with someone who was of stature Kaunda, yet who was so humble, who never allowed all the recognition and all the love that he received to get to his head. My husband never forgot where he came from. Everything he did and every step of excellence he took was for him to be able to pay it forward in one way or the other. Whether it was to ensure that Ulwimi lwesiXhosa becomes a recognized brand in rugby, or whether it was to ensure that he punts those Black rugby players who are coming up through the ranks. He utilized his platform for the greater good of others. That's the person he was. And that's the man that I fell in love with. I used to hear a lot about this boisterous character, gadalala, this outspoken character. But to me, he was a soft teddy bear in every sense of the word. Sasbizana Baba, for the most part. And a lot of his friends would laugh at this because they don't associate the name Baba with this giant, of a man. But to me, he was my sweet. He was my darling. We were really what you would call two peas in a pod. We shared a lot of memories together. And from the bucket list item of for him to go watch Manchester United, I think wherever he is, he's so glad that he actually ticked that off his bucket list. And one thing I will definitely miss is coming home, as much as it wasn't the greatest thing, but now in hindsight, it's probably something I would miss. Coming home and he's sulking because Manchester United got beaten. Okanye sivuke ekuseni, and he's sulking because Manchester United got beaten. And I would know, oh my goodness, it's going to be a long day today because Safai Manchester United. I'd sometimes even ask, Bana, do you own shares at this club that, we have to suffer like this as a result? But he truly was passionate about his sport. He was passionate about his craft. My husband sought excellence in everything that he did because he knew that he's sitting on behalf of many people who've been ostracized in the game of rugby. And he wanted to ensure that he represents excellence in everything that he does. He was when Rob described the fact that he would get there an hour early, that literally was what his work ethic was all about. He would stay up for hours researching, making sure he's got his stats and his facts in order. It would sometimes be an irritation for me because obviously I needed to make time for him to sit there and do all these hours and hours of research. Sometimes it date nighting as a result of this. Kubenzima, but I had to make peace with the man that he was and I had to make peace with the fact that I shared him with the world, and that, you know, this is the man I fell in love with. His work ethic eventually inspired me in many ways, and it pushed me to push myself as well, because I saw that it paid dividends to be that person. So we drew a lot from each other. We helped mold each other, you know. Someone mentioned here that uKaunda bengoyikinto. And as such, mnake, I'm very diplomatic in my approach, particularly with things zomsebenzi. So he would come home raging and wanting to fight people, particularly with issues pertaining to transformation. So we would practice his delivery literally. And I would have to soften certain edges because full force. And I had to say, Baba masizame ke ngokubana noko phana phasi ke sithobe, you know. So we complemented each other in many ways. He was a fantastic dad to his daughter. He loved Milani Nande like ngenye indlela that was just incredible. They would spend hours and hours together playing. You know, there were similar personalities in every way. I often say she was probably meant to be a boy because she plays much rougher than I can handle. So I don't know who she's going to play all that rough play with now. But lilonke between I don't want to be too long, particularly because I'm cognizant of time, and this has been quite a emotionally draining journey for us as a family. But what I do want to say in parting is that I'm truly, truly, truly blessed and grateful to be surrounded by abantu who loved Kaunda. We are blessed. Me and my babies are truly blessed. We thank you so much for the words, for the support, for the gestures of love that we have received, the kindness that we have received, the outpouring of just pure love that we have received from every corner of the earth. Siyabulela bethuna. Let us all release uKaunda. There's a saying esiXhosa ethi isitya esihle asidleli. I think in English one would say the equivalent of that would be only the good die young. And I think in Kaunda's case, he has fulfilled his calling on this earth. And I myself release him with the utmost love. And I thank you all for what you have done for him in honoring him. I thank you all for who you were during his life and who you have been during this period of his passing. May God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Nathi masibambe ngazo zonke mama. I think not just you, but the entire family has been very, very, very generous in sharing not just the memory, but the love that uKaunda had to share. And this didn't happen after his passing. You know, while he was alive, you're definitely right that all of us wanted Kaunda zithini insuku zakho athi hayi ngizoba secuwa nqa then athi hayi ke ndizawuke imonti ngeentsuku ezithile. You knew uba hey ezi ntsuku must change so that you can just spend an afternoon with a man, and such was his presence. So siyabulela for your generosity. But before uhambe sis Avi usakhona usaxakwe litswelo okanye I want to hear this. Yes, yeah, that's fine. I just have two things to say to you. I don't know how to comfort you. I think that's not my job, but I really want to say two things. One, something that he might not have shared with you. You guys were going to go overseas, and he called me. He was battling with the concept of flying first class. And then he's like, hey, but my wife might not agree to this thing. So he battled with this thing because he found that he was too big he felt that no, he was now too big to fly. The economy must not first class as business class. First class is the other one that Rob and them flying. But he battled with that concept, and he shared with me and I'm sure a few other friends. And that's just the kind of person that he was, you know. He would tell you something that you don't expect, you know. But more importantly, you know, this thing that you talk about when you first met him, and just how futuristic and premonition and Kaunda, somehow I happened after high school. He went to Natal to go play rugby. I came to UCT to try study. Of course, I found myself playing rugby against my promise to my parents, and somehow I made the province squad. So we played against each other. In fact, under 19. And so I saw him a few times that year. And I think the third time I saw him, and every time he'd want to come to my hostel and whatever, and we'd play. And the third time I saw him, he came into my room. I think it was in the early hours in the morning. It might have been holding, I will say it, a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand. He's like, Kobe, Opi. And then he walks in, and I think my wife told this in 2008 at our wedding. Actually, in fact, I think she might have made him stand up. And he said, it's Anguwe, pointing to my then girlfriend. It's the third time now, it's you. Then he turned to me and he says, hi man, I think you must make this thing official now. But that was the kind of guy that he was. So it really resonated with me, the story that you were telling. But but thank you again for sharing this evening with us and really allowing us to remember and hold the memory of your dear husband in that way. I will then ask that we move right to the last speaker, Umakesh Mkanya Ogamtaga. There are many nicknames. I'm not going to go into them, but Hasman, over to you.
Thank you, TG. I feel a bit underdressed with all ungenjis nesuit yakhe andazi noba ingathi ligosa lasecaweni uzawuqokelela inkongezelo na okanye sasazi wendaba waboRadio Sky. But last week Monday I was watching the video which was put up on Sport as a memorial kaKaunda khona. The presenter, question is, no, you're not wearing a suit today. I told Kaunda, no, I'm a creative. This is how I dress. It's casual. This is how we creatives do. So I think I'm in line in Noko with Mfwabo to Kaunda. Igama lami ke nguKhanya, ufana ngumdaka, ngumgedelo, uncane umdudu umusibiza ungome. Bolo misa ke abo. Ikhaya liseNgcobo. uKaunda umhlobo wami omkhulu, very good friend of mine. Ngingathetha ngayo kuse, or until the cows come home, as the English say. Don't get lost in the translation. Nto nje le ubukhulu becala balembali, the greater majority of this content is not for public consumption. And therefore, I'm not at liberty to divulge the majority of this classified information. Ndizawuzama ke umphokozela, ndimrhabulise, ndithi gqabagqaba kwimbali yalo mfo uKaunda. I'm bound by an oath stronger than doctor-patient confidentiality. I'm committed by friendship and loyalty, which are values that stood highly ke kuKaunda. Wangonqenke nokuxelela xa ungathuli yoko akamthembanga nqa. He was very theatrical kuyo yonke into ayenzayo. As far back as I've known him, he always wanted to be an actor. But his first script was award-winning Macbeth, winner of Inter-House Play 1995 at Deljo. Ithi ke laa nto isine ngithi hey, andikoshoka, ithini into yakho? Xa uzama umphendula ke ufuyamamlisha akekho sure ncam ngale nto uyithethayo. Athi hana banana lahle izandla phezulu. Yazi ke buthi sizugqibile ke ngoku ngawo. When it's completely done, what, you are not qualified, man, you are not qualified. Boniswa ke nange-wrestling ke ngaloo maxesha lawo. Ndithanda upractiza kwezi ke ingathi azinaweight, amayokoyoko, John Margato, no-David Jan. I-Stone Cold Stunner, aboniswa ngo-Stone Cold, no-Undertaker, ne-choke slam. Babezifunda phaa kuKaunda abo. Ndisho ke noXuza wayekwelo qela. And you go with these sound effects to go with it. Chimfi, muncu, you know, very expressive and very theatrical. Kuyo yonke into ayenzayo. Xa sidlala ke i-rugby, athi after a hard game athi yho ibingumxhifili, ibingumxhimfi-xhimfi. Xa sibukele igame engacacanga athi pew ooxam bebephakulana. So ke ezi sounds zikaKaunda nezi commentary kudala saziqhela ke thina. uKaunda ke was more than just a friend, wayengumzala also. Qha abantu abaninzi ke bayazi loo nto leyo ngenxa yengcinezelo yabantu besifazana kwisintu. Phofu ke the oppression of women is not just an African problem. Where the church struggles with this and Western society at large, but asikho lapho. I'm merely pointing out that umama kaKaunda yintombi yakwaXumbu. Utata wam is born of intombi yakwaXumbu naye. Making our parents cousins, besiyazalana ke nathi ngolo hlobo. If we amazi ke umama kaKaunda, you'll understand this fascination with this Xumbu woman, because she exudes beauty and elegance of royalty. Wayesithi gqipha esikoleni xa beyolanda uKaunda enxibe isibheshu sakhe lo African Queen. Ubone ke bana hayi wayengenothathwa nje nangulova nje esitratweni. Wayinida indoda enesidima. Utata kaKaunda ke lo. Such presence, when the man enters the room, you don't know whether to bow down or shake his hand. Ibe ngathi he is the presence of inkosi. Badibana ke kwathi gqi le ndoda inguKaunda. Udibana kwethu ke asiyazi bana siyazalana, sidibana esikolweni ngo-1992 standard 2. uKaunda was a gentle giant njengoba kusitshiwo. Very soft and sensitive soul. Wayebunyabarha ke when he came to a day. I-rugby ke made uKaunda in many ways, because it allowed him to use his size and his energy in a way that also harnessed the confidence yakhe and made him more confident and move out of that quietness. And that's why uKaunda had such a strong passion for the game. Wakhawuleza wazibonakalisa ke his rugby prowess. Played A-team right through school, and by 1993 he'd been given the term uBavungwana, uBev for short. Usola kasigqibanga ke isistory sakhe apha kwakudlalwa irugby ngasepulini. Into eyenzekayo apha, Kaunda nails uDumisa Makalima onto the ground. uDumisa is 2 years his senior. Dumisa gets up pissed off at too far. Mhlabethe mkama nibhavungwane. Yabona ke ba uBhavungwane into edibene nobundlobongela, some violent character. And that's how Kaunda came to be known as uBhavungwane, or Bev for short. He hated this name. At some point, he got his friends together and says, look, guys, if you're really my friend, then please don't use the name. I think the response was, okay, Bhavungwane. So right up until today, it became known as Bev. 1995, Kaunda became one of 3 Dalians to represent the border under 13 Craven Week team. The other 2 was Bradley Rodi and myself. That year we went on to tour. Mondes one day, he probably would have made the team also, but he tore his hamstring a week before. That year we went on to tour in PE and went to play Craven Week in George. When he was playing lock at this time of Kaunda. When he started off as a prop and then went on to lock. By the time he went to high school, he was a very, very strong flanker. In the Josh Cronfeld era, the same type of player. Boniswa again instead, but didn't quite have that flag up on. Jumbo Vike Bechilba Muscata, indoda edabuzayo ebaleni. Wayesithi ke ubambe ibhola from the back of the rack in the opponent's 22, you know, it's tickets. Try time is over the try line with 3 people on his back. 1998, he changed to prop in an attempt to, he thought it was an easier route to making the first team. And true as Bob, he made the first team touring squad to Zimbabwe that year. But by 2000, he was already back playing flank. And as we know, Kaunda was the first Black African, South African schools rugby captain, which was the first of his pioneering ways. As we know, he also went on to become the first Xhosa presenter. Those are the years I really came to know Kaunda. During our school years, we would used to talk into the night after lights out at school, arguing about everything under the sun. At some point, those midnight conversations started turning into planning weekend getaways to holiday apartments in East London and other places. Uzizike would also host us during Christmas when his parents are away for the Christmas holidays, and would have a non-stop party and braai piano. We were probably the closest knit group, the class of 2000 in the history of Dale. Also the most talented group. You can even look at the record books. Unik said there was some competition between the 2000 and the 99 team, but I think the 2000 team you could possibly compare to the unbeaten team of 93 of Grant Griffiths and Barry Haidakas and the boys. So Kaunda was part of this very talented and close-knit group. Michael John, David John's brother, used to ask sometimes, I don't understand you guys. You're always arguing and fighting, yet you are the closest bunch of guys I've ever seen. After school, we went our separate ways. I went to study in Cape Town and later worked there also. Kaunda went to study in Durban and played also in the Sharks Academy. No Vuyo Zanga, Bedlala Pagu Jaguars, no speech from nabanye. From Durban, he went to Bloemfontein, where he played for Free State Cheetahs, Nozweni, nabanye. I happened to be at that semi-final in 2005, where Free State was playing Western Province, and I clearly remember Kaunda after scoring a try, which I think was a try that took Free State into the final, pointing into the crowd and being like, yeah, the figure. Kaunda ke lowo. Engulomntu uthanda u-entertainer and keep the crowd alive. From there, Cheetahs, he went to the Kings, or the Spears as they were known at that time. They then became defunct to form the Kings. When they became defunct, Wahambu Kaunda wadlalela iBorder, and I think he was captain at some point. From there, he joined Lions under the mentorship of Ulofi Ilof. I think it was around about 2008, 2009 at that time. He never quite made it into his setup here, Payana, and played and coached the junior teams, Evix, I believe. It's during this time here that Kaunda's commentary career really took off. And we then shared Kaunda with the rest of the country. So we saw less and less of each other as he was working on weekends and traveling the country. But of course, whenever I was watching a game live at Newlands, if you see Newlands, the box is right at the grandstand. So we'd have a chat afterwards, and then and then we'd get together and we're Mnandi day long. Kaunda was a real pleasure to have around. There was never a dull moment with Kaunda. You know, even if it's a boring situation, he comes in with a commentary and it just cracks everyone up. And he has game ukubana sawudityaniswa ngubani, sihlekiswa ngubani engekho uzisi. Kaunda was a pioneer and a revolutionary. Igama likaKaunda will forever be inked into imbali yombhoxo apha eSouth Africa. We will miss ke ivoice kaKaunda as i-debate ka-Black Lives Matter ingathi iqalisa uvoto. It's a pity ke asizuba nayo le voice kule debate, but uZizi indima yakhe seyidlalile, ilegacy ayishiyileyo inkulu kakhulu. Ngalowo ke ndifuna ukuthi kwikhaya lakwaZizi mkhululeni uDlamini, mkhululeni uXuza. Indoda ke xa idlale indima enkulu kakhulu kuthiwa iyacelebrate, you don't mourn. Sithi ke ngesiXhosa lalani ngenxeba. Loo nto ke ithi njengoba ugqirha esithi xa usopha, put pressure on that stain. In the same way, don't run away from that emotion, but celebrate that life and remember the good times. Niqine, nidibane, nibundane, because kufuneke niphathisane. Ilegacy eshiywe yile ndoda inkulu kakhulu. Intle le nto ndiyibona apha madoda. Shampombo, shampizi, wow, wezihwahwaza.
Hayi ke Gebe, masibulele bhuti, masibulele Magesh. Ngamazwi amandi kangaka ngomhlobo wakho, ngomzala wakho, indoda ke enikhule nombatha ngubenya. Thank you, Kanya, for those kind words. And thank you to everyone who has contributed in person or through recording here that has been played. But also there are quite a few people who have contributed recordings. We found earlier that it's difficult to play through this medium and hear the quality that it is. So if you give us a chin, hey, chin, hey, ntombi yakho molweni jwaha mam jwaha, right? Hey. But Bensati, there are many contributions. Thank you everyone for being patient. We did try to put time limits, but the reality is that such an occasion, really, the emotions come and you really want to bid farewell. The recording will be available, but also we have some recorded tributes. Those who can, please just be patient. 1 minute, 60 seconds. The production team here, who I must thank, Utuls, Opeteo, Wandile keeping us on the straight and narrow, Chabe, Ndodengulu, just keeping us tidy, doing us all the structure. Coach T, Uspelman, those guys have been behind the scenes, really just allowing us to have this. So thank you guys for the contribution. And of course, the beautiful painting you see behind me belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Kiss. Can you guys just come and say hi? At the last minute, the network didn't pass at our office. These guys allowed us into their space. They've got a big pipe of data that allows us to stream. So we're here so that you guys can enjoy uninterrupted at their convenience. Thank you guys for allowing us to come in. They were social distancing earlier with masks, but they couldn't see you with masks, so they came in here. But thanks, guys, for everything. Have a wonderful evening. Be blessed. And yeah, so we all must keep Aziz's legacy and memories alive. And this is not the end of the story, it's the beginning. We need to hear a lot more voices, not just hear them, but also see people living legacy and contributing to the positive memory. There's a lot of challenges in our country, and to celebrate such a life well lived, a life fully lived, even if it was for 38 years, really is been an honor to have known him for most of that time, and really to be part of the brotherhood and the sisterhood, because a lot of ladies, even though the panel here was mostly male, but a lot of ladies who relate to Kaunda as a friend, a mentor, etc., etc. So really, thank you everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Those who can, please, once we cut off now, stay maybe a minute or so, be patient, and then tools will load the videos. Otherwise, you can come back to the Bumbo channel that we're broadcasting on. They'll be posted, all the tributes will be posted from Aya the Tiger and everyone who's come through, and you can enjoy them on demand for the next couple of weeks. Ngos.